Going to begin this morning with the debate over whether artificial intelligence has a place in the field of medicine. Like it or not, it's already being used in a lot of ways, like detecting rare genetic disorders, helping ALS patients speak, and even diagnosing some potentially deadly diseases. Doctors hope AI can help save lives, and companies like Microsoft say it can save time. But can it be relied on? As part of our continuing Age of AI series, Dr. Jon LaPook visited the Microsoft Technology Center to sit down with Peter Lee, one of the company's top researchers.
Initiating the holographic emitter array.
There was a time when holographic doctors
Please state the nature of the medical emergency.
were purely the stuff of science fiction. In 2017, I met with actor Bob Picardo, who played the emergency medical hologram in Star Trek, to talk about how medicine might one day meet science fiction.
Do you think that eventually in the future, a computer algorithm could entirely replace a physician?
That artificial intelligence physician will be created from the personal experiences of a large group of doctors. So yes, I believe the day will come when you will be obsolete.
Lieutenant, I'll take care of this.
6 years ago, Picardo's prediction seemed far-fetched. But how about now, in this age of AI? I asked Peter Lee, Microsoft's Vice President of Research and Incubations.
OpenAI has said that ChatGPT-4 has scored something like in the 90th percentile on the bar. Should we be concerned in healthcare that these computers are going to replace us in some way?
Absolutely not. And by the way, GPT-4 also gets about 90% on the U.S. medical licensing exam.
But can it hold a hand?
That's the key. This is a new type of tool. It's not a human being, but it's not a computer like we're used to.
Lee considers artificial intelligence to be a powerful tool that could dramatically improve patient care and cut down on one of the biggest complaints in healthcare, paperwork.
A primary care physician will spend about 40 to 45% of their working day writing clinical encounter notes and filling out prior authorization forms. The hope is that it will allow doctors and nurses to again make eye contact and be present with their patients.
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that.
But judging by its portrayal in movies and TV, AI has some convincing to do.
I know that you and Frank were planning to disconnect me.
Is it developing some sort of machine consciousness?
They don't have a consciousness, but they are learning from all of us.
I wondered if AI had already learned what a human practitioner has to do all the time. Figure out what's important and what's not.
How old would you like to be for today's visit?
Oh, so let's say I'm 50 years old, mildly elevated blood sugar.
Okay.
I have a bellyache. It comes and goes.
Physician assistant Andrea Barrett demoed for us the DAX Express, Microsoft's artificial intelligence technology designed to capture and summarize a patient encounter.
My toes are numb every now and then. Yeah, I've had that for years.
All right. Is one leg worse than the other? Are they about the same?
Both. Ever since I was in Australia and I was in a whitewater rafting accident and I ended up tearing my ACL in my knee when I hit a rock that was submerged.
Oh, okay. Did you have it replaced?
No, the rock stayed the same. It was really hard to get it out of the stream.
As it turned out, it did recognize that my knee injury had nothing to do with my bellyache and placed that piece of information in a separate part of the summary.
As you see, it did take out that joke that you said about the rock.
So it figured out that when I bashed my knee whitewater rafting in Australia, it had nothing to do with the abdominal pain.
Correct.
That's impressive that it was able to filter out a lot of the sort of extraneous banter back and forth.
Yep. As the clinician, you can decide if you want that included.
But there are also concerns about what the technology might leave in.
There's an expression that AI machines can hallucinate. What does that mean? What does it refer to?
So it refers to the possibility that the AI system might provide answers that aren't completely correct.
Lee says scientists are working on the equivalent of a lie detector for machines, based on finding unusual patterns of computer signals.
Sometimes they're defensive, these computers, right? They just double down on the mistake?
Once the thing thinks a certain line of reasoning is the right one, it can get stuck in that line of reasoning.
Wait, computers can be stubborn?
They can remind us as human beings of some of our own foibles, but these are just machines. They're just tools.
Yeah, that's what they always say. Dr. Jon LaPook joins us now. Fascinating what this AI can do. But I mean, what are the potential risks? And most importantly, were you seriously concerned about it?
How much time you got? Of course there are risks. Any new technology can be used for good. It can be used for bad. It is a tool. So I worry about privacy issues. Big discussion there. Mentioned hallucinations. It sometimes just definitively says 2 + 2 is 5 and has a reference for that, okay? And then one of the things I'm really concerned about is bias. We all have implicit bias. There's implicit bias in medicine. You interject that into a computer program and bias in, bias out.
It's an incredible report. I mean, the great thing about a real human doctor, of course, is they're human. They can hold a hand. They're intuitive and interesting in all these ways that are fantastic. They can't be matched by a machine. But there's all this research around how doctors make mistakes when they're busy. There was a study recently about surgery fatalities on the doctor's birthday, so thinking maybe they're distracted. Ooh. So could, like, the best of AI be married with what makes a human doctor great and we get the best outcome?
And I think that's what we're all hoping for, right? It's already being used for imaging, helping with diagnosis, helping to figure out what new drugs might be used for what diseases, or what old drugs might be applicable to other diseases. One of the things, I'm involved with this empathy project, right? And here's my fantasy about it. It could help teach empathy, and here's my fantasy.
How so?
Okay, last summer.
The AI teaches it.
AI, it hasn't happened yet, but here's my fantasy for all of you computer programmers out there, make this happen. Last summer, a woman who I've known for 30 years came into my office, and she said, "Hi." I said, "What's the matter?" She burst into tears. Her life was falling apart. And when she stopped crying, she said, "How did you know?" I said, "It's too big of a high. Too big of a high. Something was off." And first I thought, that wasn't that great to pick that up. And then I thought, what am I missing? Can you imagine in the future, you're having an encounter with a patient, and by the way, now I'm able to look the person right in the eye because ChatGPT or some equivalent is listening and making my note for me. And in the middle of the encounter, up comes a little warning, little prompt saying, based on the voice patterns for the last 10 years with this patient, you might consider that perhaps there's a little increase in anxiety to them.
Jeez.
So that's my fantasy. Or looking at body language. You asked a question and the person closed their arms and moved backwards.
Wow.
And maybe there's a little defensiveness there.
But Doc, if you're talking about artificial intelligence being able to identify emotion, it has to understand emotion. And if we're talking about artificial intelligence going from logic to now
emotion.
Figuring out its own emotion, that's where we start getting into the murky waters of movies.
What he said.
And what does understanding mean, right? So one of the things that has been tough for me is, Dr. Paul Friedman's out in the Mayo Clinic. He told me, he said, you can look at an EKG, and somehow with AI, it can predict whether years from now you're going to be in heart failure. I said, how? He goes, well, we don't really know.
Yeah.
And so I want to know, if you're telling me something, I want to know, how do you get to that logic? And, they do some mumbo jumbo. Well, it's backward propagation into a neural network using, variable weighting of nodes. And it's like, wait, like what? It's hard for doctors like me to be able to say, all right, I'm going to trust this if I don't really totally understand how it reached the conclusion. Sometimes it can explain it, and sometimes it really can't.
Yeah. You got to come back. We got to talk more about this. It's so fascinating. Dr. Jon LaPook, thank you so much.